neighbors, and welcome to Postmaster. Today we're going to be taking a look at the journey of these two trees that you saw me starting to cut down there in those first few minutes. I do not know what happened to the footage of me cutting that first tree, and here I'm trying to get this second tree to fall. I've already got it notched and made my back cut. I've got a hinge and I'm trying to wedge it over, and as you can see, I'm not having great success. And so I pound this wedge in really hard. I make a futile attempt to try and push it over by hand, as you'll see here in a moment. Yeah. Spoiler alert, that doesn't work. So, some of the safety police may be a little upset about this, but I bring my tractor in and knock it over. I've still got a good hinge on this tree. It's still attached good at the bottom. If it was cut the whole way off, this would be dangerous. I've got a rollover protection and a hard hat, so a little bit of help there. And I don't think I show it, but I actually had to take my chainsaw and cut it off there at the bottom to be able to pull it off the stump. So here we're bringing the little John Deere 770 in, hooking up to pull them out. So I use a short piece of chain attached down by the drawbar. I go over top of this little toolbar that goes between the 3-point arms, or what we used to call the plow arm. And then I use a second piece of chain. I think it's 12 foot. It's just a little chain that I picked up at a local farm store. And it's got a hook on both ends, and I can put it around two posts or two hedge trees, and then hook it into the short chain that's connected to the tractor. And I can pull two at once, or by using a separate chain and then hooking it into the tractor. Even if I'm pulling one, it makes it a lot easier to hook it up short if I don't want to have the tree dragging a long ways away. The shorter you can hook them up, the more it will tend to pick up the end of the log as you drag them, and that works better. So here we go. Can the little 25 horsepower John Deere pull these two great big trees up this hill at one time? Let's find out together. I think I'm having to feather the brakes here a little bit. I see that one tire spinning a little bit, so if you apply the individual brake to the wheel that's slipping, it improves things a little bit. You see the front ends of the logs coming off the ground a little bit. These trees had a lot of limbs on them. They were still relatively close to the edge of the timber or the forest, depending on what you call it in your neck of the woods. And yeah, they're shaggy. Okay, so it went this far, and this is where the old girl ran out of traction. My tires on this tractor are shot, and I'm just trying to milk the last little bit of use out of them that I can. So I'm trying to unhook. Yeah, I dropped the 3-point arms to take the tension off. I want to unhook this log, I think. Yeah, and I can't get it unhooked because the tension just didn't release properly. So I wind up unhooking this one just because it was easier. And we'll see if we can just pull that half. At least I got them part way up the hill before it gave up. So here we go again. If if I remember correctly, this doesn't. This is a no-go. So this time I back up, which is what I should have done the first time, and I get some of the tension off of that log. I think I knew I wasn't going to be able to pull that one with them kind of tangled in there that way. I just was trying to avoid climbing on and off the tractor an extra time. So now I do what I should have done in the first place. I unhook the one on that side that's kind of hung up, and I hook onto this one. I think I speed up the video here a little bit. Yeah, which is frustrating because I already had a chain around this log and I took it off, and so then I had to fight to get it back on. I think we're back to regular speed here now. I wish I could work that fast. If I could work that fast all the time, I would absolutely be the postmaster. Nobody could cut post faster than I do if that was the case. Yeah, so here we go. My instincts were correct that I'd have a better chance of pulling this one than the other one. So now we're yanking this one out, and you can see all of the mess on the top of this tree that I'm going to have to deal with. There's just a lot of wood there. It's not going to be a post, but there are several posts in this tree. Alright, here's another shot angle. Yeah, kind of hung up on me there a little bit. I do have the videos sped up here a little bit. I have it sped up here a lot, as you can hear. If you can hear my chainsaw, you know that that's not how a chainsaw really sounds. But there's just so much brush to get off of this, so that limb's sticking out there. I'm going to make a nice light post out of it. It's really straight. Hedge makes really good firewood. It burns really hot in a really long time. You have to be careful with it. But unfortunately, once I get all the posts out of it, a lot of what I'm left with is stuff that's too small to really feasibly mess with. For firewood, it's really small in diameter. So we got that all trimmed up, and now everything left attached to the tractor right now, with the exception of one little limb that I missed, is going to turn into a post. And so I drag it up there kind of to my landing area, to my work area that you'll see later, and I come back in after the other tree. So I drug the tree up the hill from where I cut it to kind of an intermediate staging area here. I'm building a brush pile here that I'll later burn. The landowner, part of the deal I made with the landowner is that I will clean up the brush. If I was in a different situation and the landowner didn't care about the brush, it would be so nice to just cut the tree down, limit where it's laying, drag the posts and the good stuff out, and go merrily on about my way. But the landowner actually pastures this section of timber. His cattle run in and out of here. And so that's one of the ways that I'm adding value for him, is opening up the canopy. More light is going to get down to the ground to grow grass for his cattle. And obviously the cattle aren't going to stumble around through a bunch of hedge brush to eat grass. And any place that brush is left in this timber, like if a dead tree falls down, it just grows up in briars and brambles and trees and mess. So part of the deal, like I said, is that I'll clean up the brush. So I'm pushing up the brush here and kind of starting a new brush pile. And then when I drag the next tree out, I'll stop when I get kind of next to this. I'll cut as much of the brush off as I can. You always miss a little bit, but I'll knock the brush off of it here, and then pull the good posts, the logs out of the brush, and pull them up to the main landing out on the edge of the open pasture, and that's where I'll cut them to length and scoop them up and load them onto my trailer. Alright, here we're coming back after that second tree that was kind of growing together. Apparently I lost the footage of pulling it up the hill and around the corner. I'm sure it wasn't a lot different than last time. Here you can kind of get this one doesn't have quite as much brush in the top of it. Kind of a different angle on limbing it. And sometimes it's pretty obvious where like post wood stops. You know, sometimes the tree just dictates and says, okay, this is beyond here is not worth saving. And so I'll just cut it off there and get kind of whatever length post I get. Sometimes, even here in the limbing process, yeah, I think I got my saw stuck here. So be careful. Don't get your saw stuck. That's annoying. Lifting up the face shield, contemplating the meaning of life. Oh no, I'm out of gas. I'm stuck and I'm out of gas. Alright. We got the chainsaw fueled up. Didn't film that. Coming back in. Starting down the other side. I think I kind of measure here. Is that what I do? Yep. I'm getting my tape measure in my cran out of my compartment on my tractor. And so sometimes there's not a definite ending in the post on the tree. It just kind of gets down small and small and small, and small enough that you wouldn't ordinarily keep that as a post, but if it's on the end of a longer post, you know, it'll do okay for the top of a post to fill out the 8-foot or the 10-foot or whatever you're cutting them to, 6 or 7 or, yeah, I don't know anybody that cuts them to 6, but I've sold some posts that were 7, 7.5. Right now, I'm currently cutting all my posts to 10 feet just for simplicity's sake. I've got several customers that just like them 10 foot long, and so I'm just doing that. Or I try to. If the tree says the post ends here, then I just cut it off, and I figure out a way to make whatever the best post I can out of it. And then, you know, if there's a big piece that's too short, then I just put it in the firewood pile. I do save some of the hedge for firewood. Yeah, but sometimes it's advantageous to pull the tape measure out, even though I'm not going to be cutting them to length here. Just kind of knowing where I let the tape measure sometimes dictate when the post stops and when the brush to be discarded begins. There's a picture of my cran. I just picked them up off Amazon, and my tape measure. Someday when I sell more posts, I will get one of those fancy dancy logger tape measures with the better hook on it. I think in some of this you'll see me kind of struggling to keep the tape measure on the end. Yeah, like that. So right now I'm wishing I had one of those fancy tape measures, but I don't. The crayons I just picked up off Amazon. They came in a 3-pack. They were real cheap. And for a while I didn't have a crayon, and I just kept my chainsaw with me, and I'd kind of measure and then mark it with the chainsaw or just cut it right away. Using the crayon makes it way easier. I can just kind of go around and mark everything. And you may have noticed I marked that one kind of what seemed like close to the end of the log. And so what I'm going to wind up with here is, again, just because of the way the post kind of laid out, the butt of this tree, the end of the log, for those that aren't up on the logger terminology, the butt end usually refers to where the tree was attached to the stump. So the butt on this hedge tree is bigger in diameter and isn't a really good match with the long straight parts of the tree. So what I'm going to do is that end piece, as much as I hate to do it, it's just going to turn into firewood. And the posts are going to wind up being narrower in diameter, not going to be quite as big around as what they would be if the bottom of that tree was good. But they're going to be, not that the bottom of the tree is bad, but they're going to be more uniform. So people don't seem to like having a great big blob on the bottom of the post and then a narrow post above it. They seem to sell better the more uniform you can keep them in size throughout. So that end piece will be a chunk of firewood, or I've got a guy that makes knife handles out of Hedge, and I may take him another load of stuff. So yeah, just working my way around through. I think I've actually got both of them laying here. So I drug, if you remember all the way back to the beginning of the video, there were kind of two hedge trees standing there side by side, and this video is kind of taking them both through the whole process. So I've got everything marked now, coming back in with the chainsaw, face shield down. Usually I wind up taking a couple chunks of sawdust to the face before I remember to put my face shield down, so that's a win. Yeah, we're just going to run around here cutting up all the It's a piece of firewood coming off the end right there. But it's so nice when you have them all marked. Like I say, for a while I didn't use that crayon, and it was just, I'd measure and then cut, measure and cut. It's so nice just to kind of go with your tape measure. You can kind of lay things out, especially if you've got a crooked piece of hedge and you're not exactly sure what you're going to keep or what you're going to get rid of. You can mark it kind of light, and then if you don't like it, you can go back and mark it heavier a different way and kind of pick out what you want. And then when you start chainsawing, you kind of don't really have to think about it. You just look for the red marks and cut it at the red marks, and it seems to make it go faster. Or if you start cutting one spot and you see it's going to pinch your saw, you can go and cut a different spot to take some of the weight and pressure off of it, and then come back, or where you can roll it around to relieve that pressure so you don't pinch your saw. I wind up pinching my saw way too much cutting hedge. Alright, this one back here, we're taking off, I think I'm taking off that limb post. It'll be a light post. Or maybe I'm cutting off some little brush that I didn't see. What do we got going? Yep, there went the little limb post. That'll be a light post. It probably won't be worth a lot of money, but it's already attached to the tree. If I don't bring it out, it's too small for firewood. If I don't bring it out, I have to burn it. So I might as well throw it on the trailer or bring it along, sell it as a bargain post or as a cheap line post. Somebody will take it and get some use out of it. And it's not really that much more weight on the trailer or that much more hassle. And then that's less I have to burn. You can see behind me there's a really big brush pile, and I need to get it burned. But it's kind of gotten dry, so I'm waiting for a good burn day that I can safely do that. But today is not that day. I think I get a really nice straight post out of the bottom of this tree. Yeah. Obviously, the straighter uniform diameter, the better. Kind of walking around checking, make sure I got all my cuts made. Throwing the little pieces of brush. I was trying to leave as much of the brush up at the other brush pile as I could, just because this brush pile here is getting big enough. I don't like letting the brush piles get too big. It just makes a bigger fire, and it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's probably fine, but I'm more comfortable with a little bit more manageable size. Some of these are really light here, and so I'm just throwing them, kind of indexing them, getting them up there on a pile so they're easier So I can just grab them with one scoop with my forks that you'll see here in a minute. Looks like that's a piece of brush I'm just getting rid of, I think. Yeah, looks like it. I don't know, that piece looked pretty straight. I wonder why I didn't grab a... It must have been smaller than what it looks on the camera. Or I just decided not to fool with it, who knows. Alright, now we're going to load up our posts and get ready to head out. When I shot this video, I was using a set of clamp-on forks. And they worked good to get me going. I have a different set now that I'll show you in a future video about my setup. But this got me going, just proof of concept, and I made some money, made enough money to switch over to the quick attach system that I now have. So that's probably actually more posts. That's probably more weight than what I really want on the front end of this thing. It's only about a 25 horsepower tractor, but it's an older 25 horsepower tractor, and it kind of punches above its weight as far as 25 horsepower tractors are concerned, in my opinion. Bringing them in. I've also made some modifications to my log cart that I'll show you. In this video, the standards, the vertical pieces on the ends of the bunks that hold the logs on are fixed, and I make them so I can remove them. Not that that would change the loading process, but it does make it a lot easier in the unloading process. There you can see, just kind of in the bottom of the screen, you can see that end chunk from that one tree that is just going to be firewood. Do we have two? Is there a chunk of firewood on the end of this one also? Yeah, there is. Both of those trees had a chunk of firewood on the end. So, but you can see, even though these posts aren't super huge in diameter, they are nice and straight, and so they will be marketable, and we'll be able to make a good post for somebody. And here we go, coming in for the last. I think I cut more posts this day. I don't really remember. It's been a little while ago since I shot this film, but I think I was running out of battery and card space and all that stuff. So that is the load. Actually, no, I think I just take these out. I think that's all the time I had for that day, and that's all the time we have for this video. Thank you for joining us for the Postmaster. Bye for now.